Hello, hello, welcome everybody. I'm Jev. Yes, Triple V. The accent, by the way, is purely Kiwi. I read old stories for children, so we keep this a family-friendly channel by having bad word blockers, banning bots, and preventing spam. So that means new followers need to wait a few minutes before they can join in the chat. Since these stories are so old, they're now in the public domain, which means they are free to read for anyone and by anyone, the way many Christmas songs are. The digital versions I read are from Project Gutenberg, and you'll find the link for that below. The physical ones are just old books my family has lying around. Sometimes I'll even show them to you. These, by the way, are live reads. Think of them as bedtime stories rather than actual audiobooks. You get the benefits of my mistakes, distractions, explanations, and terrible attempts at accents, along with plenty of chat and interruptions as we find out about things in the story. If you need to do work or chores, then that's fine. Just come and lurk. Please adjust your volume to suit. There are captions available if you have to be quiet or you have hearing challenges, but be warned, sometimes the captions aren't always that accurate. I am a member of the Codex, an awesome group of reading streamers on Twitch. People from many walks of life who share their love of reading, and you'll find links to the Codex reading team and our Discord server below. A special feature of the Codex Discord is the security channel for those of you who stream or moderate. You'll find lots of practical, useful information to help keep your stream and your community safe. So, hang around and come discover adventure with me. You never know what we'll find. Just checking to make sure I'm unmuted before I start talking. Hence the crazy wave. Hi everybody, how are you? I'm still glad that technology works. Speaking of which, I had to restart my computer because a program that usually works fine. Excuse me, itchy eyes. Just got to get those settled and then I can carry on. So the shame indeed. I am going to drink the water bottle. So here we go. Drinking. Which means you are too. I will run the tips video very shortly, but I will get this very short little bit out of the way so it's out of my head and I don't need to try and remember it. So my browser, I use Opera GX, which works really well, and it's got some controls in its dashboard one click away from your main screen. You don't have to go through a whole lot of menus to get to it, where you can throttle certain usages that your browser has for graphics processing and RAM and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you, Void. It's always a good idea to start with some water anyway. So what I do is, if I'm using the standard version of it, I will throttle everything back in my browser so that it's not taking away from what OBS is capable of doing. So usually what I do before I start streaming is I close my normal iteration of Opera GX and open one that is specifically for streamers. They've got, it's actually technically it's another window of Opera GX, but it's one that's set up if you click on it in the original dashboard. It's one that all the tabs, when you open a tab, are muted. So you're not going to get spillover into your stream if you've got it capturing windows or anything like that. Then you can manually choose to unmute and all sorts of that sort of thing going on. So normally I just click on it and it closes normal Opera GX. I actually have them color coded, so the normal version has Opera GX's standard red, and actually no, I don't. I have it so it has a lavender color, of course, because it's me. And then my one for when I'm streaming has a nice teal color, so I know which is which because color coding, and I don't have to stop and think about it. Sends Raccoons out of the room to not inflate his ego. Excellent. So we will get to the Raccoons tips video very, very shortly. But I love the banter going on. Is he here? Yes, he is here. He's waiting in another room. He's in the green room at the moment, so he doesn't actually hear us talking about him. And like Goriki says, doesn't get an inflated ego. He watches every GVNZ stream. Yeah. So it wasn't closing. I normally close the my standard GX and open up my streaming GX, and it wasn't closing. And I'm a little bit sharper today than some days. I thought, okay, I'm going to use Task Manager, force close it, and then after that, instead of just opening up all my normal stuff, because GX usually works really well for me, and no, it was not telling me that it had or has just done an update, because it does inform me of those things. I thought, well, the safest thing to do is actually to just restart my computer, because it may be something else that was causing that issue. So I restarted my computer right before I had to start everything else to stream, and it was a little bit and thankfully I'd already got my lunch sorted, some toast and one piece of toast with butter and Vegemite. No, not Vegemite, Marmite. New Zealand Marmite, not English Marmite. They're quite different, by the way. Based on the same idea, but very different in texture and other things. Transparency, actually, weirdly. And the other one was butter and peanut butter. Chunky peanut, crunchy peanut butter, which was both very, very yum. I tend to prefer savoury things, not sweet things, when it comes to lunch, which is probably a good thing. So that's all going. We've got an ad starting in a few minutes. So what I will do is I'm going to run the Raccoons video, and hopefully the audio will work. Otherwise, I'll pause it and tinker a little bit and we'll get the audio working. So here we go. Here are some tips for those of you who haven't been here before, or reminders for those of you who have. Raccoons.
Hello, my name is Raccoon Zed. In Zed. That's right. 3 C's and 3 O's. Ha. So, welcome to the stream. We have many tips for you to help enjoy the stream. Number 1. Have a drink. I like water. As soon as my human helps me out here. So, another part of that is when I hydrate, when I take a drink, you do too. You can indicate that you've done so by giving a thumbs up or use the water bottle emoji down in chat. Number 3. Sure, why not? Food or snacks? I don't have any right now, but you eat whatever you'd like to eat. Maybe it's a whole meal, maybe it's a snack. I don't know. You do you. Number 4. Get comfy. You can wrap up in something. Thanks, human. That's more like it. Grab a pillow. Maybe you've got a fidget toy you can play with. But do anything you like to be comfy. You could even have, I don't know, maybe your favorite human will give you scritches. Hey, human. That's right. Give me scritches. Yeah, that's right there. Yeah. No, don't touch the floof. Next, we have number 5, something to write with or write on. Hey, I can't reach the pad. There you go. And I need something to write on. I just said something to write. Oh wait, that's something to write on. I need something to write with. Okay. Okay, so I don't have opposable thumbs, but you do. Write memos down. You might need to remember something. Maybe not right now, but maybe after the stream. Number 6. Get involved. Join in chat. Chat in chat. Use commands. Play bingo because, that lady says some pretty crazy things from time to time. Make clips. You can even have them featured. Maybe we can see your clips someday. Spin the pages, which are like right down there somewhere. They look like a book or something. The thing down there with a number under chat. And just do whatever you can to enjoy chat. Thanks for watching.
And welcome back again. There's some nice fun things to see and do while you're here. All very useful information. I'm actually just having a quick look in my Stream Elements commands to see if I've got one that is actually specific to do with creating clips. But I don't, because I think that would be a good one to do at some stage. But I can't figure out what to say. I think that's why I haven't got one. So yeah, if you are watching and you enjoy the buzz of Goes to Call Raccoons back, yes, thank you very much, Koriki. Raccoons is most welcome to sit and watch now. If you do enjoy making clips, do feel free to create clips and even share them in other places and let Twitch know that they have been shared in those places. I think that's still available. It's accessible through your Twitch inventory page system somewhere, or at least it was when it first came out. And I don't mind if you're making fun of me as long as you're not being nasty about it. If I do something stupid and you want to highlight that, that's quite okay by me. It doesn't bother me. I'm not very precious about people's impressions of me because I've been me for a very long time and been made fun of a lot of that time and actually learnt to see the fun of it. Like Make Clips Video Producer. Yeah, you can make the clips through your video producer section, and then if you share them elsewhere, like I think it's TikTok, YouTube Shorts, and Threads, but I'm not sure, something else I don't use. You can let Twitch know as part of a whole, they were doing a whole thing about that. Anyway, so I can't remember, and I realize there is an ad break going. So I'm just going to figure out what it was. I'm going to open up my book. I'm going to open up my book. That's the one. And it's really lovely having you all here. I hope that the weather isn't too bad where you guys are. Oh, that's a good question there, Goriki. Did the subtitles actually say inventory, not inventory? I'm not sure. I'm going to have to check that. Oh, Void, your comment was a little bit too long. If you break it down slightly, then you can repost it. Or yeah. Thanks, Goriki, for removing the timeout. Void had said you can view your Twitch VODs or videos on demand as a streamer, your clips made by yourself or by viewers, and then you can view the clips that you made of other streamers. Yes, that's correct. That's what Goriki had actually shared of what Void had previously said. So just, yeah, that 150 thing there. It's one of the ways that we actually keep out some of the drop and go scammers and spammers is by having extra short comment lengths. It also means it works really well for actually keeping chat flowing, because people will type something, hit enter, and then keep typing and hit enter. And it means there's enough space in there for other people to get some comments in as well. And if I'm trying to follow the thread of what somebody is saying and they've said a great big long post but they've split it into pieces, I will automatically scroll and look at their different chunks of what they've said. It's don't ever feel like what you say is disconnected because of breaking it down into smaller chunks. It actually still works. So Goriki and myself can actually put more than 150 characters because mod and streamer. But yeah, we do have that as a thing that's in place just to keep it working better for everybody. And those who can afford to subscribe also don't have that limitation on it. But I think Goriki's the only one who's currently subscribed at the moment. So we'll see. What else have we got going on? I think everything else is working here at the moment. I have iced coffee and I don't have to worry about hiding any branding on it because it's a homemade one that PJ made for me, which is fantastic. I still need to do the pop in from the side animated GIF thing for Coffee Boy and do it as a command, just because he does get referred to quite often as Coffee Boy. And I'm thinking it would be really good to do a Coffee Boy t-shirt at some stage too. Or something. A mug with Coffee Boy on it. That would be better. That would be more appropriate. More, not appropriate, more appropriate seems to be about acceptable usage. More specifically related, more specifically connected. That sort of appropriate. Anyway, oh, I see I've got a line showing up here from my, that's that one, and we'll just leave the rest alone. This other line here is actually in the picture in the background. Oh, Theo's treat time. Where's Theo? I'm going to see if I can bring him up so he can have a treat. So just wait a minute. The camera should show up sometime soon. I don't know why it hasn't yet. Sometimes it's a bit sluggish. And I don't know why. But otherwise I will manually turn it on. But I'm just going to go and get Theodore so we can actually give him some treats. Hey, curled up downstairs, and I called out to him, and he says, "What?" And he's looking at me hopeful. Layers, I thought you moved him to DDV or something. I added him to DDV. Scene. Just a minute. He's got a look on his face like, huh? You want me to come up there? I'm just going to go and get him. Mercy. Sit down. Sit down. Yes, sit. Good boy. Sit. Stay. I've just got to get it on. Where is it? Just got to get the camera to go. And I think that's going to do it. Camera should go. There he is. Treats. Yes, that's you. The wheel on my chair got stuck. One more. There you go. Lovely boy. Lie down now. What was the oh my about? Did I miss something? Did I do something inappropriate? Hope not. There you go, slightly better. Oh, that was because I had triggered it through StreamerBot, and I was doing it from a commands end, not the reward end, so you didn't get all the extra bit with the little animation on screen and all that sort of stuff. That was all. So just a good, no, where are you going? No, come back here. Sit down. Yeah, sit. Come on. Sit. You stay there just a little bit longer. Come on. Wait till the camera turns off, and then you can go away. Lie down. Go on. Come on. Yes, you're handsome, dude. You're very handsome. It's all right. Yeah, you can stay just a little bit longer. Only about 3 more minutes. Yeah, good boy. Good boy. That's the way. He's giving me the blinkies. Right, so we're back. I think everything else is working okay. I figured out what the problem was actually. It wasn't StreamerBot, it was actually because when I was setting it up, yeah, Theoloaf indeed. Because when I was setting it up for working in my game scene, yes, we do love Theoloaf indeed. When I was wanting this to work during my game scene, I actually had to set it up so the camera, instead of being in this scene, was a separate scene, so the visibility could be handled for every scene that I put that into, instead of it being just working in my chat scene, which is this one here. So but it meant that I had to change the visibility here. So it's permanently visible in every scene that I have it in, but the actual camera itself gets turned on and off for OBS's point of view in its own little sub-scene. Very complicated, but it works. It's just that I've got to remember which bits needs to be visible and which bit needs to be invisible. And anyone who streams and uses OBS knows what I'm talking about with visibility. It's that little eye icon. And if it's not visible, then it's an eye icon that's shaded out and it has a line through it. So that's turning it off so it's not visible. So it's just finding the right version of it to be turned on. Why is that going super bright? That's wrong. And it's not even on auto exposure. That's better. Contrast could do with a little bit more. The blacks are a little bit too white. Is it the gain? I've got an external little camera handler which you can save your settings in. That, to me, looks a bit better. You can save the settings, and even though I have the camera turned off between streams and then I turn it back on again, so it doesn't automatically remember there, if I go to that little program, I can load the save, and so it sets it back to the settings I previously had. It's just that last time I used it, I didn't have the settings set up very well. A lot of it depends on ambient lighting. That's why. But I never ever have any of those sort of ones set for automatic, because automatic just does really weird things on webcams. Trust me on this one, it really does. So there you go, and that's working, and now we're going to read some storybook. Oh, okay, so other bits and pieces to remind you guys of, or for me to let you know about, or anything else like that. Discord. Make sure you aren't clicking on any links in Discord unless you already know the person really well and their behavior before they give, yes, definitely, and their behavior just before they gave you the link was their normal behavior, not pressuring you to click on a link. Okay, there are some really nasty things going around through Discord at the moment. Also, if you have a Discord server or you moderate on a Discord server, seriously plan and implement join applications for people to join the server instead of them just automatically being allowed to. One, it's going to stop lower the incidence of spammers coming in and using your user base, your members, as their mailing list. And then on top of that, it's going to reduce the incidence of you having people posting inappropriate stuff, whether it is very bad links that are quite dangerous and can hijack your sign-ins and everything, or other stuff. Okay, so yeah, please do look after the hygiene of your Discord server in lots and lots of different ways. Use the safety settings that they have available, they are constantly, slowly, but constantly actually working to improve them. So once upon a time, if you wanted people to apply to join a server, you had to use an external bot to do that, one of the authorized bots. Now it's actually part of the Discord system as long as the server has been set as a community server. And a lot of people didn't used to use community server as an option because they thought that community server meant it had to be available on the directory and they didn't want all the drive-by membership applications type thing. In actual fact, a community server just means that you don't already know everybody who's going to apply to join, as opposed to a friends and family server, which is the generic one that is not a community server, where you send an invite to everybody that you want part of it, and then they join. That's the generic background style one. If you set it as a community one, you can have it so that it's visible in the directory, or you can have it so people can apply to join, or you can have it so it's a private server. So yeah, there's things like that. You do need to keep an eye on what is around. There are links to do with that information. So Goriki, if you wouldn't mind putting those links in chat. I can't remember what they are at the moment. If you want your viewership to count for the person you are watching, you need to be in a maximum of 2 streams for your sign-in, whether it's on one device or spread across a number of devices. You need to be in a maximum of 2 streams, otherwise your viewership does not count for any of them. And that includes watching your own stream too, by the way. So if you are, like me, have another device open with me watching me, and then I have some Twitch channels open in my browser and they are not mine, once I get past that one extra one, my viewership doesn't count for any of them. So if you want to support your current favorite streamer or currently who you're watching, make sure that you're in no more than 2 Twitch streams at the same time, regardless of what devices you are on, if you want your viewership to count. And unless it's somebody who has thousands of viewers concurrently, it really does actually help. And yes, if you can't afford to subscribe to a channel, then watching the ads really will seem like it's doing nothing, but it all does eventually add up for your favorite streamer that you are watching, if they are affiliated or partner. And don't assume that if someone's got to partnership level that they're actually really raking it in, because they don't actually really, because I know partners who don't have a huge viewership. They got invited to be partner because within their specialized area of streaming, there were not as many others there, so therefore they were offered partnership. In the big games, there are lots and lots and lots of people who are streaming who are monetized, either affiliate or partners. There are some really, really, really big names in IRL and certain games. Twitch does not automatically invite you to become a partner, whereas Twitch does automatically, if you meet the requirements, the threshold requirements, invite you to become an affiliate. Okay, there is quite a big difference there. So I know somebody who's not a partner who has applied a few times. It doesn't mark against them if they've applied and failed. It just means that currently in their category, Twitch feels that they have good saturation for partnership, and that particular person is not going to contribute enough to that upper tier of being a partner because of their viewership. Usually it's to do with viewership numbers, actually. So getting to affiliate is in some ways quite easy. The hardest part of getting to affiliate is actually having enough concurrent viewers over a certain amount of time. It used to be. It's easier now. They've split it in half again. But to get to that with partner is a lot harder, because you have to meet, I think it's 50 viewers constantly across 30 days. And if you are a small niche streamer, if you stream in a small niche, it is really, really, really hard to do. Yeah, partner push is exhausting. That's why I'm just not going to bother. Because I never get, I mean, numbers wise, after I stream, it's over 70, is it? Okay. It the goalposts change a bit over time. I think it was 75. Yeah, that makes sense. What was I going to say? No, I can't remember. I just remember that it was really hard to actually consistently get up to. That's right. On my review at the end of my stream, Twitch sends me an email. Stream Elements usually does. It doesn't always. Sometimes they drop the ball. Each of which gives you a different set of numbers as to what's going on your stream. How many people were there watching? How many people were there in general? How many people actually were chatting? And all that sort of stuff. No, yeah, don't get violent there. There are some people who are partners who some of us regret them being partners. Let's put it that way instead. So I lost it again. If you hear a weird squealing in the background, it's hubby doing some woodwork, and he's got a tool that if you get it at the wrong angle, it makes a squealing sound. By the way, so what's it saying? Viewership, that's right. So you will get this information that says, oh, you had this many unique chatters today, which is great. It's wonderful. But it doesn't count as me actually having over a certain threshold consistently across 30 days. That's today I had this, last time I had this, and that sort of stuff. So getting to that extra extent of viewership, engaged chatting is actually more important than just having people there. But it's lovely. Squeaking is my hubby doing woodwork. Tubby doing woodwork. Yes, it's really weird. Oh, I finally got one of the accent apps to work on my phone. Can't get it to work on my computer. I don't know why. It just won't. It doesn't send the signal from my microphone to the website. And it said that I was 65% New Zealand accent. I'm a Kiwi. Anyone who hears me talking says, are you a New Zealander? But other Kiwis used to think I was English, so I don't know. I tried it again later on and I was 60, one was 65 and the other one's 81, I think. Still not in the high 90s, which I think I should be, because I think I sound really, really Kiwi, especially when I listen to a recording afterwards. Anyway, so there's one other point, but I'm going to wait till we've finished the ad break. I'm going to check to see if we did read that one last time. I need to check off the stories I have read on my Google Keep, because that way it's a lot easier to stop the book when we've had enough of this book, put it down, and then come back to it later and know I'm coming back to the right part of the book instead of rereading a story we've already had and realizing it 2/3 of the way through and going, oh, this is boring, we shouldn't have done that, sort of thing. So I have in Google Keep, I use that because it's on my phone. It's also, you can access it in your browser. And it doesn't keep pushing me to upgrade, to do extra things like Evernote did. Evernote might be fabulous, but Evernote is also very, very money hungry. Whereas Google just keeps, I mean, I know Google wants money, but Google with Google Keep doesn't ask me to spend any money on it, which is nice. Thank you very much. And I can use it in lots of different places. So I have a list of all the chapters and I have it set so that they have check boxes for the beginning of each line. And that means I can check it off. Jeff bookmarks coming soon. That sounds like a good idea, doesn't it? Let's write that down as an idea for something we can do. Bookmarks. I keep feeling like I think once upon a time I actually started something that we should actually have a place where people can make suggestions about things like merch and things like that. Easy for me to organise things once I get the graphics sorted. And they would be my sort of graphics where it's based on a photo and then it's got colouring bits around it or outlines or something like that. Or me pulling stupid faces, or the cat, or raccoons even. I don't know if raccoons is happy to be part of the package. Oh, I saw a gorgeous pin. You know, the sort of pin, they used to be called lapel pins, but they're used for other, they're decorative pins that you put on your clothing now, that I would like to get for raccoons, but I have to see if I can save up enough money for it. So anyway, one day, it can have Goriki's affirmations on it. Woohoo! Especially if they're done as those combinations, which are not the original version. The affirmations are done as 2 parts of statements that are made at the end of succeeding in under a certain number of moves in either hue or I love hue or I love color or something like that. There's a part 1 and a part, there's the original, and then there's the second version of it where you're actually rearranging tiles of color to get them so that they go from they graduate from one color to another, and they're really cool. But I used to play it a lot, but you need to use them during the day because I use a color filter on my phone and it changes the color shades a little bit, so it's not so accurate. But what Guriki has done is he's taken the affirmation statements and split them in each, because they have 2 parts to them, split them into parts so that my stream elements will actually pull from a list of each part, the first part and the second part, and smoosh them together. That's why you'll get some interesting combinations, a delicious rainbow sort of thing. Which I think is actually wonderful. A vivacious box of pizza. There you go, that sort of thing. Goriki says that Jev is a shining idiot. Why not? Happy to wear that one. We could do something along those lines. I think it is a really cool idea. Anyway, so I do have one other thing that I probably need to remind you guys of, though. Just in case you were wondering, Twitch numbers are dropping. Number of viewers on Twitch are dropping. I don't know if number of streamers are. I would guess that number of streamers are. But the number of viewers is definitely dropping to pre-pandemic levels, because a lot of us got onto Twitch for something to do to keep us sane, that kept us thinking about outside of our own little bubbles. In New Zealand, we had... you could have a bubble of people that you were in connection. I love Hugh and I love Hugh too. That's right. Thank you very much. Oh, were they? I hadn't realized they were randomized in the same sort of randomization. So in New Zealand, when we had the first of the lockdowns in New Zealand, you could be in contact with a certain number of other people as long as they were not in contact with others. The total number of people who were going to be in contact with each other was a set figure, and I can't remember what it was. It was something like 12 people, and none of the people in that cluster were allowed to be in contact with anyone outside of that cluster unless it was very distantly, so there was no chance of cross-infection. And by keeping people in small groups, they actually stopped a lot of that cross-contamination with COVID. We did, by the end of the first lockdown, our COVID infection numbers were really, really low. And then we had a bunch of people who complained that they really wanted to go over to Australia to see their grandkids or whatever like this. Aunties, I haven't seen Auntie for a while, even though they didn't go over very often. They only went over every 3 years or something like that. Because they had been stuck at home, they really desperately wanted to, rather than actually needing to. And we had a bunch of people went over to Australia, not a huge number of people, but a few people went over to Australia, and when they came back, we had COVID again. And it just swept the country. So we went back into lockdown again. We actually had a regional lockdown too at one stage, where some people had been overseas. They came back into New Zealand and they'd been in contact, because when you're out of lockdown, supposedly you can still bump into people and see people and all that sort of stuff. You don't have these little bubbles you have to stay in. And it started spreading across Auckland, and so they actually locked down the whole of the Auckland region. And that's the region that I'm in. And so everyone in Auckland region had to go back into their little bubbles, and everybody else could carry on as normal because we didn't let it spread anywhere else. Except, more of that happened a bit later on, that sort of stuff. So, yeah. But for New Zealanders, this is why a bunch of us got involved with using Twitch. Now, I already had a Twitch account. I just hadn't streamed before. But it was something where I thought, well, it'd be a good thing to do. Just sort of spend some time with some other people if they turn up. And then I got the trolls came and didn't know what to do about it. So I did some research, found out about a few things, got some things set up. That's where I first came, not immediately, a bit later on, we then had the Hotspot invasion. And that's where I found out about Seribot, which at the time that I first knew about Seribot was actually helpful because nobody else had a clue what to do. But the bot invasion got even bigger. It was a bit slower growing after the Hotspot incident, but they were getting a lot more diverse. And it was around that time I think I got to know Guriki, and we started finding that we were spotting bots sitting in chat, and Seribot was also sitting in chat and not banning or blocking them. And I would actually sit there and leave that bot sitting there in my channel, not Seribot, but the other one, the invasive bot, sitting in my channel for most of a stream, and nothing happened. So in the end, I actually disconnected Seribot from my account. Because Guriki and I, or even just me on my own, because he was working at that stage, we were banning bots way faster than Seribot was, which is why, yes, apparently it has actually improved, but it was designed for one person to use to protect their own account, and then they actually shared it with their friends, and their friends started using it and talking about it. And I think it's been a bit of an overwhelming thing with people jumping on board and using it. There are a few things that the owner has said at different times, which I'm like, I don't quite know if you get the way that's meant to work. Like, their idea was you block and then you ban. No, you actually need to ban and then, if necessary, block. Works better that way. And then when I actually looked at how many blocks had been put on my Twitch account by Seribot against users, I was shocked, because you need to understand that with computers, the more stuff that's running in the background, the more it slows things down. Now, that's on your computer, but it's also with checking connections. So if you're using a service that's based on a website, if it causes your program that you're using to keep on checking something, it's going to slow things down. So none of us knew if having a huge heap of blocks that were unnecessary were actually going to slow things down. I've always had a few issues with my system anyway. Thank you, Guriki, for putting the Modellearn videos up. Please do watch them, and then you'll understand a little bit more about what I'm talking about. But I went through and I deleted 25 million blocks on my account. Users, 25 million users that had been blocked from making any connection with me. Because there's nothing anywhere that says if that's going to actually have any lag effect on your channel. And I didn't want a lag effect on my channel whatsoever. But it took 2.5 or 3 days of me keeping my computer awake and letting it run using Commander Root tools to remove all of those blocks. 25 million blocks. Have I been contacted by any of those names since then, since I've removed those blocks? Have I been threatened by anyone who was on that block list? No. So it was completely and utterly unnecessary. It was a waste of Twitch's space regarding me. Because somewhere or other, they have a server that has a list of these blocks have been applied to JevNZ's account. And that's wasting space that they've allocated for me. Sure, they're not charging for it yet, but they might do in the future. So 24 million users blocked for contacting me, and it didn't do a thing. Removed them all, and it made no difference to anyone contacting me or being difficult towards me, which meant that having them blocked wasn't doing a thing. It was useless. Banning is a lot more effective, and Twitch has improved what happens when they ban, when you ban someone. 24 million of them have been disabled or deleted. Yeah, most of those no longer exist anyway, so there's no point in having them blocked. So yeah, ban first, and then if somebody approaches you privately, then block them. That's how it works. Many cases, blocked terms is greater than block terms is greater than banning. So when you block terms, block words and phrases rather than users, because somebody's going to create a whole lot more disruptor bots, and you won't already have those names unless you're someone like Goriki who does a lot of research on that and actually watches for patterns and actually does do those sort of bans. But blocking terms has a lot more positive effect on your chat flow than banning users. Unless you get someone who already understands all of that. But it's still good to ban users if you need to. But blocking users, most of us aren't doing anything where we're going to get targeted to need to actually block users. But you still have it as a tool if you need it. You can block. You can also report. I think you need to report before you block someone, because otherwise you can't access their account name to be able to report them, because it's part of the do not contact system. Anyway, so there you go. There's my little mini rant. Yeah, if you're finding that you're getting less viewers these days, don't be surprised, because we're down to pre-COVID levels of Twitch usage. Nearly down, getting that way. So we're going to read the history of the history of Whittington, not the history of Dick Whittington. Always report them, then block, ban, or time out. Yes, definitely. That's the best sequence for it. If you've got someone who is being a pain in a not good way, I'm not using bad words, okay? Use it. If you've got someone who is being insert all the bad words you can think of here, person, in your channel, report them, and then block them, ban them, block them, and time them out, or any of those things you need to do. Also, there's a huge channel over on the Codex Discord server, which talks all about security things. Some of the things, the systems have actually been improved since those points were written, but it's definitely worth having a read through there or watching the YouTube videos. Start with Modloon 1 if you're going to watch the YouTube videos. Take notes if it gets confusing. Pause, walk away, give yourself something else to think about, come back to it tomorrow or whatever. But do watch them in small chunks. And if you don't understand something, go back over it, but also let it run on a little bit further, because sometimes there's things that are covered a little bit later that actually help you to understand it a bit more. The Modloon videos prove the lack of effectiveness of Seribot. Yes, they do. I do still have people see people recommending it. I do happen to know that it is better than it used to be, but I haven't yet managed to find out from Siri themselves, the person who wrote the bot, or anyone else who is not just a fanboy and ultra defensive, but actually is genuinely interested in discussing it, what goes on in the way they handle things. Because yeah, I'm not going to start using a system that automatically applies 25 million blocks in my account, and then those blocks are not doing anything. So there. Informative hour. Yes, definitely. Yeah, vocab warning. There is some language. There's some intense language in there. And Guriki is very black and white about stuff. You need to know that. He is, but it's very useful stuff. It is worth listening because the black and whiteness about things are because this is information that he has spent a lot of time learning and applying and putting into practice. There you go. But do be aware, it's not family-friendly language the whole time. Actually, when you get to one of the videos, I'm in it. And I think I even mentioned the 25 million or 24 plus million blocks in there as part of it. So, yeah, he has no respect for Ceribot just because of there are some really, I don't know about now, some really don't really know what you're doing, do you, sort of comments that can be made about some of the ways that Ceribot handles things or handled things. I don't know now because I haven't been able to get an answer. I think they just think of me as a possible troll, and I try not to ask questions too often in case they do block or ban me on other services. When all I want is actual information. I'm not wanting to have a go at them. I just want to have a discussion and find out what they actually think. But that's not happening. So I'm giving it another rest for a while. Right, you have been warned about the language in the ModLearn videos. The history of Whittington. Not even Dick Whittington, the history of Whittington. Let's see how Andrew Lang retells this for children, because we found that some of these are not what we these days will consider to be children friendly. It is touched on in all three, but the videos do build on each other, by the way. You do need to get the context of what's being discussed in video 1 before you go on to 2 and 3, because those are supplemental information, just by the way. So the history of Whittington. Dick Whittington was a very little boy when his father and mother died, so little indeed that he never knew them nor the place where he was born. He strolled about the country as ragged as a colt. That's a young, untrained male horse, I think. Oh, yeah, that's right. 2 of the radios have chapter listings. Yeah, I had forgotten that, but thank you. That's a good point. He strolled about the country as ragged as a colt till he met with a wagoner who was going to London and who gave him leave to walk all the way by the side of his wagon without paying anything for his passage. Now, you might think, why would you have to pay to walk alongside? If you're still walking, you're not getting a ride. It's actually because of security on the road. People would go in groups. They would travel in groups. We hear of highwaymen. Yes, colt, young horse. So you know how a cat, when it's half grown, looks really lanky and messy and unkempt, like a teenager. Well, that's really what it is. A colt is a teenager of a horse kind, where they just don't look quite put together properly. So this walking but not having to pay, that's because you would travel in a group with others. Not the Miller's Tale, Canterbury Tales, which is people going on a pilgrimage to the city of Canterbury to go to Canterbury Cathedral from London. It's a series of stories being told while the group are travelling together. They were pilgrims, they were going to the cathedral, and it was quite a number of days' walk to get there from London to Canterbury. But they travelled as a group. Partly in that context, it was because they were actually all going to the same place for the same purposes. But in addition, they were safer if they travelled together in a group than if they travelled on their own. Not just highwaymen. Highwaymen were after carriages. And that was after the era of having guns, being able to shoot, because you would hold somebody up and say, stand and deliver, and all that sort of stuff, which I don't know if they really did actually. But you would also have footpads, thieves, who would be opportunist with getting whatever they could, making a living off travellers, because their thinking was, I need it more than you do, therefore I'm going to take it. Not, oh, this person might be travelling on foot instead of by horse because they don't have any money. But yeah, it was open game. So therefore you travel together with others And that's why you've got us here. He could walk beside the wagon without having to pay anything for it, because he is traveling in a group and he's not having to contribute to the businessman for the company to keep him safe, which was apparently unusual to do when you have somebody as important as a wagoner who is doing it as his business. This pleased little Whittington very much, as he wanted to see London, sadly, for he had heard news that the streets were paved with gold, and he was willing to get a bushel of it. But how great was his disappointment, poor boy, when he saw that the streets were covered with dirt, and horsemark actually, and cowmark, and anything else for any other animals travelling through the city. Streets were covered with dirt instead of gold, and found himself in a strange place, without a friend, without food, and without money. Now, it's quite common for people who live in the country to get the impression that quite possibly things are a lot better in the city, and so they travel to the city, and then they can't afford to leave. Or there's just the possibility of actually getting an opportunity to do something, and so they'll stay just in case they are going to get a better opportunity than what they're currently living with. And so you get this influx of people always to cities, rather than people moving into the countryside. The only ones who do that are usually people who have family out in the countryside, and they know they can go and live with them for a while and be sustained by them until they get established, or people who have lots of money who are buying expensive places away from the city to get out of it. So one extreme or the other. Anyway, so yeah, it was quite common for people to flock to the cities. That's why cities keep growing. Though the wagoner was so charitable as to let him walk up by the side of the wagon for nothing, he took care not to know him when he came to town, and the poor boy was in a little time so cold and hungry that he wished himself in a good kitchen and by a warm fire in the country. In his distress he asked charity of several people, and one of them bid him go to work for an idle rogue. "That I will," said Whittington, "with all my heart. I will work for you if you will let me." So he's just said that the other guy is an idle rogue. Oopsie. The man, who thought this savoured of wit and impertinence, though the poor lad intended only to show his readiness to work, gave him a blow with a stick, which broke his head so that the blood ran down. Broke the skin, not the bone. And gave him a blow with a stick, which... no, we'll read that bit. In this situation, and fainting for want of food, he laid himself down at the door of one Mr. Fitzwarren, a merchant, where the cook saw him, and being an ill-natured hussy, not the way we would use the word these days, ordered him to go about his business or she would scold him. SCALD, that means chucking hot water over him, not scold SCOLD, which is telling someone off, even though we say them the same way. At this time, Mr. Fitzwarren came from the Exchange, that is the stock market place in London, the Exchange, that was where all the financial business goes on, and began also to scold at the poor boy, bidding him to go to work. So it's written scold with the cook with an A, that's the physical hot water, and scold with an O, that's the words telling someone off. The words are probably actually related. It was Mr. Fitzwilliams telling him off, bidding him to go to work. Yeah, a derogatory term. Yeah, definitely. Whittington answered that he should be glad to work if anybody would employ him, and that he should be able if he could get some victuals to eat, for he had had nothing for 3 days, and he was a poor country boy and knew nobody, and nobody would employ him. In other words, I would like to work, but I have no work, but also I'm going to need some food, otherwise I'm not going to be able to work. Not a very nice lady. Yes, this usage of the word hussy. It is often used to imply something a little bit more than just not a very nice lady these days. He then endeavoured to get up, but he was so very weak that he fell down again, much excited, which excited so much compassion in the merchant that he ordered the servants to take him in and give him some meat and drink. So up till then it was just, I think, an automatic reaction, move along, from the merchant. And now he's going, oh, this is a real person, there is some trouble here, let's see what we can do to help. So he ordered the servants to take him in and give him some meat and drink and let him help the cook to do any dirty work that she had to set him about. So to give him some work doing all of the scruffy, messy things that she wouldn't want to do, and probably other servants in the house who are lower than her level in the kitchen. They have to do it, but they don't necessarily want to, because they're the lowest of the low in the pecking order of the servants, and now they have somebody who's lower than them that can do those jobs. Yeah, the messy things, the uncomfortable things, the unpleasant things. People are too apt to reproach those who beg with being idle, but give themselves no concern to put them in way of getting business to do, or considering whether they are able to do it, which is not charity. That was a comment from the author, by the way. But we return to Whittington, who could have lived happily with this worthy family had he not been bumped about by the cross cook, who must be always roasting and basting, or when the spit was idle, employed her hands upon poor Whittington, knocking him about. And at last Miss Alice, his master's daughter, was informed of it, and then she took compassion on the poor boy and made the servants treat him kindly, and the cook would not be pleased with that, I can tell you. Besides the crossness of the cook, Whittington had another difficulty to get over before he could be happy. He had, by order of his master, a flock bed placed for him in a garret. We've heard about garrets, haven't we? That's like an attic. And I don't know, I have not yet found out, and write that down, attic versus garret. We often hear of garrets in this sort of era of book, and I think an attic that in their minds might be just a storage space. A garret is all sorts of things, and it seems to imply somewhere pretty rough, but it's up on the roof of a house. Where there was a flock bed, that would imply it's got feathers or fluff from sheep or something. I don't know. Doesn't mean anything to me. Placed for him in a garret where there was a number of rats and mice that often ran over the poor boy's nose and disturbed him in his sleep. After some time, however, a gentleman who came to his master's house gave Whittington a penny for brushing his shoes. This he put into his pocket, being determined to lay it out to the best advantage, and the next day, seeing a woman in the street with a cat under her arm, he ran up to know the price of it. The woman, as the cat was good mouser, asked a deal of money for it, but on Whittington's telling her he had but a penny in the world, and that he wanted a cat sadly, she let him have it. Maybe it wasn't as good a mouser as she was wanting people to pay for. I don't know. This cat Whittington concealed in the garret, for fear she should be beat about by his mortal enemy the cook, and here she soon killed or frightened away the rats and mice, so she was a good mouser, so that the poor boy could now sleep as sound as a top. Soon after this, the merchant, who had a ship ready to sail, called for his servants, as his custom was, in order that each of them might venture something to try their luck, and whatever they sent was to pay neither freight nor custom, for he thought justly that God Almighty would bless him the more for his readiness to let the poor partake of his fortune, so they could send something as an investment with him. They would not have to pay to do so, nor pay for it to take up room on that, and then what they got back from it they would gain by. All the servants appeared, but poor Whittington, who, having neither money nor goods, could not think of sending anything to try his luck, but his good friend Miss Alice, that's the merchant's daughter. How has he made good friends with her? We haven't had that information, but my brain is going like, she went from putting in a good word for him to now actually she's his good friend. I don't know. Thinking his poverty kept him away, ordered him to be called. She then offered to lay down something for him, but the merchant told his daughter that that would not do, it must be something of his own, upon which poor Whittington said he had nothing but a cat which he had bought for a penny that was given to him. "Fetch thy cat, boy," said the merchant, "and send her." Whittington brought poor puss, and delivered her to the captain, with tears in his eyes, for he said he should now be disturbed by the rats and mice as much as ever, because they'll come back. But Miss Alice, who pitied the poor boy, and gave him something to buy another cat.
All the company laughed at the adventure, but Miss Alice, who pitied the poor boy and gave him something to buy another cat. While Puss was beating the billows at sea, being tossed around on a boat at ship at sea, poor Whittington was severely beaten at home by his tyrannical mistress, the cook, who used him so cruelly and made such game of him for sending his cat to sea that at last the poor boy determined to run away from his place, and having packed up the few things he had, he set out very early in the morning on All Hallows Day. We know what day that means. It means November the 1st. All Saints' Day. All Hallows Day, because All Hallows Eve is Halloween, which is the 31st of October, the eve of All Hallows or All Saints' Day. He travelled as far as Holloway and there sat down on a stone to consider what course he should take. Now, anyone who knows London would be able to trace where he is talking, the author is talking about. Holloway is famous now for having a prison. I don't know if it's a current prison or an old one, but it's Holloway Prison. And I think there was a hill there at Holloway. Holloway Hill sounds familiar too. He travelled as far as Holloway and there sat down on a stone to consider what course he should take. But while he was thus ruminating, Bow bells, that's the bells in the church in Bow, of which there were only 6, began to ring, and he thought their sounds addressed him in this manner: "Turn again, Whittington, thrice Lord Mayor of London." That's what the bells seemed to say to him. Lord Mayor of London, he said to himself. What would one not endure to be Lord Mayor of London and ride in such a fine coach? Well, I'll go back again and bear all the pummelling and ill usage of Cicely rather than miss the opportunity of being more Lord Mayor. So we've just found out the cook's called Cicely. Okay. So home he went and happily got into the house and about his business before Mrs. Cicely made her appearance. We must now follow Miss Puss to the coast of Africa. How perilous are voyages at sea, how uncertain the winds and the waves, and how many accidents attend a naval life. Back in the old days, yes. The ship that had the cat on board was long beaten at sea, and at last by contrary winds, driven on a part of the coast of Barbary, which was inhabited by Moors unknown to the English. So you've heard of the Barbary pirates, maybe? They were pirates from North Africa that operated in the southern parts of the Mediterranean Sea and also off the northwestern coast of Africa. So this is maybe where their area is, the Barbary coast, maybe what is now Morocco and Tunisia. I don't know. So on a part of the coast of Barbary, which was inhabited by Moors unknown to the English. So the Moors are the Arabic peoples. The Moors were the ones who took over in Spain for a while. Yeah. These people received our countrymen with civility, and therefore the captain, in order to trade with them, showed them the patterns of the goods he had on board, and sent some of them to the king of the country, who was so well pleased that he sent for the captain and the factor to come to his palace. So the factor is someone who works on behalf of, which was about a mile from the sea. Here they were placed, according to the custom of the country, on rich carpets, flowered with gold and silver, and the king and queen being seated at the upper end of the room, dinner was brought in, which consisted of many dishes, but no sooner were the dishes put down but an amazing number of rats and mice came from all quarters and devoured all the meat in an instant. The factor, in surprise, turned round to the nobles and asked if these vermin were not offensive. "Oh, yes," said they, "very offensive, and the king would give half his treasure to be freed of them, for they not only destroy his dinner, as you see, but they assault him in his chamber, and even in bed, so that he is obliged to be watched while he is sleeping for fear of them." They've got a plague of them by the sound of it. The factor jumped for joy. He remembered poor Whittington and his cat, and told the king he had a creature on board the ship that would dispatch all these vermin immediately. The king's heart heaved so high at the joy which this news gave him that his turban dropped off his head. That's the nearest we've got to any childlike storytelling in this story. "Bring this creature to me," said he. "Vermin are dreadful in a court, and if she will perform what you say, I will load your ship with gold and jewels in exchange for her." The factor, who knew his business, took this opportunity to set forth the merits of Miss Puss. He told His Majesty that it would be inconvenient to part with her, as when she was gone the rats and mice might destroy the goods in the ship, but to oblige His Majesty he would fetch her, so he's selling her high. "Run, run," said the Queen, "I am impatient to see the dear creature." Away flew the factor, while another dinner was being prepared, and returned with the cat, just as the rats and mice were devouring that also. He immediately put down Miss Puss, who killed a great number of them. The king rejoiced greatly to see his old enemies destroyed by so small a creature, and the Queen was highly pleased, and desired the cat might be brought near, that she might look upon her. Upon which the factor called, "Puss, puss, puss," and she came to him. He then presented her to the Queen, who started back and was afraid to touch a creature who had made such havoc among the rats and mice. She might be dangerous if she's that vicious. However, when the factor stroked the cat and said, "Puss, puss," the Queen also touched her and cried, "Put, put," for she had not learned English. He then put her down on the Queen's lap, where she, purring, played with Her Majesty's hand, and then sank herself to sleep. I think that means she purred herself to sleep. The king, having seen the exploits of Miss Puss, and being informed that her kittens would stock the whole country, bargained with the captain and the factor for the whole ship's cargo, and then gave them 10 times as much for the cat as all the rest amounted to. On which, taking leave of their majesties and other great personages at the court, they sailed with a fair wind for England, whither we must now attend them. The morn had scarcely dawned when Mr. Fitzwarren arose to count over the cash and settle the business for that day. He'd just entered the counting-house and seated himself at the desk when somebody came tap-tap at the door. "Who's there?" called Mr. Fitzwarren. "A friend," answered the other. "What friend can come at this unseasonable time?" "A real friend is never unseasonable," answered the other. "I come to bring you good news of your ship, the Unicorn." The merchant bustled up in such a hurry that he forgot his gout, instantly opening the door, and who should be seen waiting but the captain and factor, with a cabinet of jewels, and a bill of lading, for which the merchant lifted up his eyes and thanked heaven for sending him such a prosperous voyage. Then they told him the adventures of the cat, and showed him the cabinet of jewels which they had brought for Mr. Whittington, because it was his cat. Upon which he cried out with great earnestness, but not in the most poetical manner, "Go, send him in, and tell him of his fame, and call him Mr. Whittington by name." It is not our business to animadvert upon these lines. We are not critics, but historians. It is sufficient for us that they are the words of Mr. Fitzwarren, and though it is beside our purpose, perhaps not in our power, to prove him a good poet, we shall soon convince the reader that he was a good man. Which was a much better character, for when some who were present told him that this treasure was too much for such a poor boy as Whittington, he said, "God forbid that I should deprive him of a penny. It is his own, and he shall have it to a farthing." He then ordered Mr. Whittington in, who was at this time cleaning the kitchen, and would have excused himself from going into the counting-house, saying the room was swept, and his shoes were dirty and full of hobnails. The room that he was meant to go to was nice and clean and tidy, and I am not. Therefore I don't want to come. I think it's inappropriate. That's what he's thinking. The merchant, however, made him come in and ordered a chair to be set for him, upon which, thinking they intended to make sport of him, as had been too often the case in the kitchen, he besought his master not to mock a poor simple fellow who intended them no harm, but let him go about his business. The merchant, taking him by the hand, said, "Indeed, Mr. Whittington," you don't call someone Mr. unless they're a certain level of society back then, "I am in earnest with you, and sent for you to congratulate you on your great success. Your cat has procured you more money than I am worth in the world." And he is insisting that he's handing it all over to Dick. "And may you long enjoy it and be happy." At length, being shown the treasure and convinced by them that all of it belonged to him, he fell upon his knees and thanked the Almighty for his providential care of such a poor and miserable creature himself. He then laid all the treasure at his master's feet, who refused to take any part of it, but told him he heartily rejoiced at his prosperity. So he's offering it back to his master, and his master's saying, no, that's yours. And hoped the wealth he had acquired would be a comfort to him, and would make him happy. He then applied to his mistress and to his good friend, Miss Alice, who refused to take any part of the money, but told him she heartily rejoiced at his good success, and wished him all imaginable felicity. No, not a girl's name. He then gratified the captain, factor, and the ship's crew for the care they had taken of his cargo. He likewise distributed presents to all the servants in the house. So he is a kind and generous person. Not forgetting even his old enemy the cook, though she little deserved it. After this, Mr. Fitzwarren advised Mr. Whittington to send for the necessary people and dress himself like a gentleman, and made him the offer of his house to live in till he could provide himself with a better. Now it came to pass, when Mr. Whittington's face was washed, his hair curled, and he dressed in a rich suit of clothes, that he turned out a genteel young fellow, and as wealth contributes much to give a man confidence, he in a little time dropped that sheepish behaviour which was principally occasioned by a depression of spirits, and soon grew a sprightly and good companion, insomuch that Miss Alice, who had formerly pitied him, now fell in love with him. But of course, when her father perceived that they had this good liking for each other, he proposed a match between them, to which both parties cheerfully consented. So at least we don't have the opposition of her father, that's good. And the Lord Mayor, court of aldermen, sheriffs, and the company of stationers, the Royal Academy of Arts, and a number of eminent merchants attended the ceremony. Wow, those are important sectors of society back then. This is high level, really high level, and were elegantly treated at an entertainment made for that purpose. History further relates that they lived very happy, had several children, and died at a good old age. Mr. Whittington served as Sheriff of London, and was 3 times Lord Mayor. In the last year of his mayoralty, he entertained King Henry V and his Queen after his conquest of France, upon which occasion the King, in consideration of Whittington's merit, said, "Never had Prince such a subject," which being told to Whittington at the table, he replied, "Never had subject to such a king." A little bit diplomatic there, that's good. His Majesty, out of respect to his good character, conferred the honour of knighthood on him soon after. Sir Richard, many years before his death, constantly fed a great number of poor citizens, built a church and a college to it, with a yearly allowance for poor scholars, and near it erected a hospital. He also built Newgate for criminals, and gave liberally to St. Bartholomew's Hospital and other public charities. The end. I don't know. That one we don't have a talking cat. We don't have a... Is Puss in Boots meant to be the cat in the Dick Whittington story? Or is that a completely separate story? For some reason, my mind has always confused the two. Apparently there was a real Richard Whittington. There you go. And you can look it up on Wikipedia and probably a bunch of other places. I don't know how accurate the story is, but it's interesting to have it included in a book of fairy tales. Indeed. And we are going to start the next story because we have just enough time to squeeze it in. So yeah, if you look up Richard Whittington, actually, I'll put it in the chat. There you go. There's the Wikipedia page about it. And we're going to carry on. The Wonderful Sheep. Once upon a time, in the days when the fairies lived, there was a king who had 3 daughters who were all young and clever and beautiful. But the youngest of the 3, who was called Miranda, was the prettiest and the most beloved. The king, her father, gave her more dresses and jewels in a month than he gave the others in a year. I'm just going to write that name down because I know it from other contexts, and I'm wondering what the significance of it is. We've got a place in New Zealand called Miranda as well. And I think there used to be an ice cream company or a fizzy drink company that was also called Miranda, maybe after the place. I don't know. It sparks widely variant, a wide variety of connections in my head. That's why I'm wanting to look it up. Let's carry on. Miranda was the prettiest and most beloved. The king, her father, gave her more dresses and jewels in a month than he gave the others in a year, but she was so generous that she shared everything with her sisters, and they were all as happy and as fond of one another as they could be. Now the king had some quarrelsome neighbours who, tired of leaving him in peace, began to make war upon him so fiercely that he feared he would be altogether beaten if he did not make an effort to defend himself. So he collected a great army and set off to fight them, leaving the princesses with their governess in a castle where news of the war was brought every day, sometimes that the king had taken a town or won a battle, and at last that he had altogether overcome his enemies and chased them out of his kingdom, and was coming back to the castle as quickly as possible to see his dear little Miranda, whom he loved so much, and his other daughters, one would hope. The three princesses put on dresses of satin, which they had made on purpose for this great occasion, one green, one blue, and the third white. Their jewels were the same colours. The eldest wore emeralds, the second turquoises, and the youngest diamonds. And thus adorned they went to meet the king, singing verses which they had composed about his victories. The governesses kept them busy indeed. When he saw them all so beautiful and so gay, he embraced them tenderly, but gave Miranda more kisses than either of the others. He's really setting it up for there to be enmity between them, isn't he? Presently a splendid banquet was served, and the king and his daughters sat down to it, and as he always thought that there was some special meaning in everything, he said to the eldest, "Tell me why you have chosen a green dress." Sorry, I'm going to have a drink of water, by the way, which means you guys are too. Here we go. Water. And carrying on. "Sire," she answered, "having heard of your victories, I thought that green would signify my joy and the hope of your speedy return." "That is a very good answer," said the king. "And you, my daughter," he continued, "why did you take a blue dress?" "Sire," said the princess, "to show that we constantly hoped for your success, and that the sight of you is as welcome to me as the sky with its most beautiful stars." So that would imply it's dark blue. "Why," said the king, "your wise answers astonish me. And you, Miranda, what made you dress yourself all in white?" "Because, sire," she answered, "white suits me better than anything else." Which is probably actually why the others chose their colours. "What?" said the king angrily. "Was that all you thought of? Vain child!" "I thought you would be pleased with me," said the princess. That was all. The king, who loved her, was satisfied with this, and even pretended to be pleased that she had not told him all her reasons at first. "And now," said he, "as I have supped well, and it is not time yet to go to bed, tell me what you dreamed last night." Oh dear, he's setting them up for failure, isn't he? The eldest said she had dreamed that he brought her a dress, and the precious stones and gold embroidery on it were brighter than the sun. So she's praising him, I guess, saying he's successful. The dream of the second was that the king had brought her a spinning wheel and a distaff, and that she might spin him some shirts. Don't think she knows what she's talking about. Spin the thread to then weave, to then sew into shirts. There's a lot of work to go from that to the other. But the youngest said, "I dreamt that my second sister was to be married, and on her wedding day you, father, held a golden ewer," that's a big jug or pot, "and said, 'Come, Miranda, and I will hold the water that you may dip your hands in it.'" Which seems a little odd, but may actually be significant. The king was very angry indeed when he heard this dream, and frowned horribly. Indeed, he made such an ugly face that everyone knew how angry he was, and he got up and went off to bed in a great hurry, but he could not forget his daughter's dream. Does the proud girl wish to make me her slave? He said to himself. I am not surprised at her choosing to dress herself in white satin without a thought of me. She does not think me worthy of her consideration, but I will soon put an end to her pretensions. Yeah. He rose in a fury, and although it was not yet daylight, he sent for the captain of his bodyguard and said to him, You have heard the Princess Miranda's dream. I consider that it means strange things against me. Therefore I order you to take her away into the forest and kill her. My favourite daughter, go and kill her. Immediately. Off with her head. I don't like her any more. And that I may be sure it is done, you must bring me her heart and her tongue. If you attempt to deceive me, you shall be put to death. Reminiscent of Snow White, anyone? The captain of the guard was very much astonished when he heard this barbarous order. The king obviously thinks of him too highly of himself. But he did not dare to contradict the king for fear of making him still more angry or causing him to send someone else. So he answered that he would fetch the princess and do as the king had said. When he went to her room, they would hardly let him in. But it was so early. But he said that the king had sent for Miranda, and she got up quickly and came out. A little girl called Patty Pata, held up her train, a little slave girl, and her pet monkey and her little dog ran after her. The monkey was called Grabugeon, and the little dog Tintin. Okay, Tintin. I thought Tintin was a character in the Hergé books, and that he'd made the name up. The captain of the guard begged Miranda to come down into the garden where the king was enjoying the fresh air, and when they got there, he pretended to search for him, but as he was not to be found, he said, No doubt his majesty has strolled into the forest, and he opened the little door that led to it, and they went through. By this time the daylight had begun to appear, and the princess, looking at her conductor, saw that he had tears in his eyes, and seemed too sad to speak. What is the matter? She said in the kindest way. You seem very sorrowful. Alas, princess, he answered, who would not be sorrowful who was ordered to do such a terrible thing as I am? The king has commanded me to kill you here and carry your heart and your tongue to him, and if I disobey, I shall lose my life. Poor princess was terrified. She grew very pale and began to cry softly. I'm envious of people who can cry softly. Looking up at the captain of the guard with her beautiful eyes, she said gently, Will you really have the heart to kill me? I have never done you any harm and have always spoken well of you to the king. If I had deserved my father's anger, I would suffer without a murmur, but alas, he is unjust to complain of me when I have always treated him with love and respect. Fear nothing, princess, said the captain of the guard. I would far rather die myself than hurt you, but even if I am killed, you will not be safe. We must find some way of making the king believe you are dead. What can we do? Said Miranda. Unless you take him my heart and my tongue, he will never believe you. The princess and the captain of the guard were talking so earnestly that they did not think of Patty Pata, but she had overheard all they said, and now came and threw herself at Miranda's feet. Madam, she said, I offer you my life. Let me be killed. I shall be only too happy to die for such a kind mistress. Why, Patty Pata, cried the princess, kissing her, that would never do. Your life is as precious to me as my own, especially after such a proof of your affections as you have just given me. You are right, princess, said Grabugeon, coming forward, to love such a faithful slave as Patty Pata. She is of more use to you than I am. I offer you my tongue and my heart most willingly. Grabugeon was... Who was Grabugeon? The monkey. Grabugeon's the monkey and Tintin's the dog. You are right, princess, said Grabugeon, coming forward, to love such a faithful slave as Patty Pata. She is of more use to you than I am. I offer you my tongue and my heart most willingly, especially as I wish to make a great name myself in Goblin Land. No, no, my little Grabugeon, cried Miranda. I cannot bear the thought of taking your life. "Such a good little dog as I am," cried Tintin, "could not think of letting either of you die for his mistress." So does she not know that this is not normal to have your animals talking to you? "If anyone is to die for her, it must be me." And then began a great dispute between Patipata, Grabbudgeon, and Tintin, and they came to high words until at last Grabbudgeon, who was quicker than the others, ran up to the very top of the nearest tree and let herself fall head first to the ground, and there she lay, quite dead. These are children's stories. These have been retold specifically for children, remember? The princess was very sorry, but as Grabbudgeon was already dead, she allowed the captain of the guard to take her tongue, but alas, it was such a little one, not bigger than the princess's thumb, that they decided sorrowfully that it was of no use at all. The king would not have been taken in by it for a moment. "Alas, my little monkey," cried the princess, "I have lost you, and yet I am no better off than I was before." So the monkey is considerably smaller than her then. "The honour of saving your life is to be mine," interrupted Patipata, and before they could prevent her, she had picked up a knife and cut her head off in an instant. Children's stories were a lot more gruesome back then. But when the captain of the guard would have taken her tongue, it turned out to be quite black, because she was a black slave. So that would not have deceived the king either. I don't know. Do people who have black skin have black tongues? I wouldn't know. "Am I not unlucky?" cried the poor princess. "I lose everything I love and am none the better for it." "If you had accepted my offer," said Tintin, "you would only have to have me to regret, and I should have had all your gratitude." "Except it's a little dog. Why is the tongue going to be any bigger?" Miranda kissed her little dog, crying so bitterly that at last she could bear it no longer and turned away into the forest. When she looked back, the captain of the guard was gone, and she was alone except for Patipata, Grabbudgeon, and Tintin, who lay upon the ground. She could not leave the place until she had buried them in a pretty little mossy grave at the foot of a tree, and she wrote their names upon the bark of the tree, and how they had all died to save her life. And then she began to think where she could go for safety, for this forest was so close to her father's castle. Remember, the guy had actually just opened the door in the wall, and they had gone through into the forest. Yeah, it's quite close. So close to the castle that she might be seen and recognized by the first passer-by, and besides that, it was full of lions and wolves, which might have provided more suitable tongues and hearts, actually, who would have snapped up a princess just as soon as a stray chicken. So she began to walk as fast as she could, but the forest was so large and the sun was so hot that she nearly died of heat and terror and fatigue. Looking which way she would, there seemed to be no end to the forest. So it's a fairly open forest. I'm used to forests where the leaf colour is quite dense and you don't get that sort of level of heat. She was so frightened she fancied that every minute she heard the king running after her to kill her. You may imagine how miserable she was, and how she cried as she went on, not knowing which path to follow, and with the thorny bushes scratching her dreadfully and tearing her pretty frock to pieces. "No doubt there are shepherds here with all their flocks," she's saying. Frock is another word I want to check. I want to know its etymology. "They will show me the way to some village where I can live disguised as a peasant girl. Alas, it is not always kings and princes who are the happiest people in the world. Who could have believed that I would ever be obliged to run away and hide because the king, for no reason at all, wishes to kill me?" So saying, she advanced toward the place where she heard the bleating. But what was her surprise then when, in a lovely little glade, that's an opening in the forest, quite surrounded by trees, she saw a large sheep. Its wool was as white as snow, and its horns shone like gold. It had a garland of flowers around its neck, and strings of great pearls about its legs, and a collar of diamonds. It lay upon a bank of orange flowers under a canopy of cloth of gold, which protected it from the heat of the sun. Nearby 100 other sheep were scattered about, not eating the grass, but some drinking coffee, lemonade, or sherbet. That makes it fizzy. Others eating ices, that's like ice cream, strawberries and cream or sweetmeats, while others again were playing games. Some of them wore golden collars with jewels, flowers, and ribbons. Sheep. I think this is a fever dream. She's got too hot in the sun. She's got sunstroke. Miranda stopped short in amazement at this unexpected sight, and was looking in all directions for the shepherd of this surprising flock when the beautiful sheep came bounding toward her. "Approach, lovely princess," he cried. "Have no fear of such gentle and peaceable animals as we are." "What a marvel," said the princess, starting back a little. "Here's a sheep that can talk." She had a monkey and a dog that could talk, and she's surprised that the sheep can. Your monkey and your dog could talk, madam," said he. "Are you more astonished at us than them?" How did he know that? She's been walking for hours in the forest. "A fairy gave them the power to speak," replied Miranda, "so I was used to them." "Perhaps the same thing has happened to us," he said, smiling sheepishly. I bet Andrew Lang has been itching to put that into a story somewhere. He smiled sheepishly, the sheep did. "But, princess, what can have led you here?" "1,000 misfortunes, Sir Sheep," she answered. "I am the unhappiest princess in the world, and I am seeking a shelter against my father's anger." "Come with me, madam," said the sheep. "I offer you a hiding place which you only will know of, and where you will be mistress of everything you see." "I really cannot follow you," said Miranda, "for I am too tired to walk another step." The sheep with the golden horns ordered that his chariot should be fetched, and a moment after appeared 6 goats harnessed to a pumpkin, which was so big that 2 people could quite well sit in it, and was all lined with cushions of velvet and down feathers, very soft for the stuffing. The princess stepped into it, much amused at such a new kind of carriage. The king of the sheep took his place beside her, and the goats ran away with them at full speed, and only stopped when they reached a cavern, the entrance of which was blocked by a great stone. This the king touched with his foot, and immediately it fell down, and he invited the princess to enter without fear. Now, if she had not been so alarmed by everything that had happened, nothing could have induced her to go into this frightful cave, but she was so afraid of what might be behind her that she would have thrown herself even down a well at this moment. So without hesitation she followed the sheep, who went before her down, 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 until she thought they must come out at the other side of the world. Indeed, she was not sure that he wasn't leading her into fairyland. The monkey was talking about Goblin Land. At last she saw before her a great plain, quite covered, with all sorts of flowers, the scent of which seemed to her nicer than anything she had ever smelled before. So obviously there's lighting from somewhere. I don't know. A broad river of orange flower water. Orange flower water, I think, is a drink, a little bit like lemonade or something, flowed round it, and fountains of wine of every kind ran in all directions and made the prettiest little cascades and brooks. I'm going to guess that they were white wine then. The plain was covered with the strangest trees. There were whole avenues where partridges, ready roasted, hung from every branch. I think she's still stuck in this heat stroke fever dream. Or if you preferred pheasants, quails, turkeys or rabbits, you had only to turn to the right hand or to the left, and you were sure to find them. In places the air was darkened by showers of lobster patties, white puddings, sausages, tarts, and all sorts of sweetmeats, all with pieces of gold and silver, diamonds and pearls. This unusual kind of rain and the pleasantness of the whole place would no doubt have attracted numbers of people to it if the king of the sheep had been a more sociable disposition. But from all accounts it is evident that he was as grave as a judge. Hi, Jultair, great to have you here again. We're having a really, really, really weird story at the moment. So, Yes, it's almost grim level. Some of the other ones have been very grim. This one is called, actually, I'll tell you what it's called. It is called The Wonderful Sheep. It is very peculiar. We'll carry on. But he was as grave as a judge. He didn't like lots of company, so therefore lots of people didn't know about this place. As it was quite the nicest time of the year when Miranda arrived in this delightful land, the only palace she saw was a long row of orange trees, jasmines, honeysuckles, and musk roses, and their interlacing branches made the prettiest rooms possible, which were hung with gold and silver gauze and had great mirrors and candlesticks and the most beautiful pictures. The wonderful sheep begged that the princess would consider herself queen over all that she saw, and assured her that, though for some years he had been very sad and in great trouble, she had it in her power to make him forget all his grief. Just stay here and rule with me, and I shall be happy forever. I don't know anything about you, but I shall be happy forever. You are so kind and generous, noble sheep, said the princess, that I cannot thank you enough, but I must confess that all I see here seems to me so extraordinary that I don't know what to think of it. As she spoke, a band of lovely fairies came up and offered her amber baskets full of fruit, but when she held out her hands to them, they glided away, and she could feel nothing when she tried to touch them. "Oh," she cried, "what can they be? Whom am I with?" And she began to cry. At this instant the king of sheep came back to her and was so distracted to find her in tears that he could have torn his wool. "What is the matter, lovely princess?" he cried. "Has anyone failed to treat you with due respect?" "Oh, no," said Miranda, "only that I am not used to living with sprites and with sheep that talk, and everything here frightens me. It was very kind of you to bring me to this place, but I shall be even more grateful to you if you will take me up into the world again." "Do not be afraid," said the wonderful sheep. "I entreat you to have patience and listen to the story of my misfortunes. I was once a king, and my kingdom was the most splendid in the world." Surprise, surprise. "My subjects loved me, my neighbours envied and feared me. I was respected by everyone, and it was said that no king ever deserved it more. I was very fond of hunting, and one day, while chasing a stag, I left my attendants far behind. Suddenly I saw the animal leap into a pool of water, and I rashly urged my horse to follow it. But before we had gone many steps, I felt an extraordinary heat instead of the coolness of the water. The pond dried up, a great gulf opened before me, out of which flames of fire shot up, and I fell helplessly to the bottom of a precipice. I gave myself up for lost, but presently a voice said, "Ungrateful prince, even this fire is hardly enough to warm your cold heart." "Who complains of my coldness in this dismal place?" I cried. "An unhappy being who loves you hopelessly," replied the voice, and at that same moment the flames began to flicker and to cease to burn, and I saw a fairy whom I had known as long as I could remember, and whose ugliness had always horrified me. She was leaning upon the arm of a most beautiful young girl, who wore chains of gold on her wrists and was evidently her slave. "Why, Ragotte," I said, for that was the fairy's name, "what is the meaning of all this? Is it by your orders that I am here?" "And whose fault is it," she answered, "that you have never understood me until now? Must a powerful fairy like myself condescend to explain her doings to you, who are no better than an ant by comparison, though you think yourself a great king?" "Call me what you like," I said impatiently, "but what is it that you want, my crown or my cities or my treasures?" "Treasures," said the fairy disdainfully. If I chose, I could make any one of my scullions richer and more powerful than you. I do not want your treasures, but," she added softly, "if you will give me your heart, if you will marry me, I will add 20 kingdoms to the one you have already. You shall have 100 castles full of gold, and 500 full of silver, and in short anything you like to ask me for. I feel like there's a trick happening. Madame Ragot, said I, when one is at the bottom of a pit where one has fully expected to be roasted alive, it is impossible to think of asking such a charming person as you are to marry one. I beg that you will set me at liberty, and then I shall hope to answer you fittingly. Ah, said she, if you really love me, you would not care where you were. A cave, a wood, a foxhole, a desert would please you equally well. Do not think that you can deceive me. You fancy you are going to escape, but I assure you that you are going to stay here, and the first thing I shall give you to do will be to keep my sheep. They are very good company, and speak quite as well as you do. As she spoke, she advanced and led me to this plain where we now stand, and showed me her flock, but I paid little attention to it or to her. To tell the truth, I was so lost in admiration of her beautiful slave that I forgot everything else, and the cruel Ragot, perceiving this, turned upon her so furious and terrible a look that she fell lifeless to the ground. At this dreadful sight I drew my sword and rushed at Ragot, and should certainly have cut off her head had she not by her magic arts chained me to the spot on which I stood. All my efforts to move were useless, and at last, when I threw myself down on the ground in despair, she said to me with a scornful smile, I intended to make you feel my power. It seems that you are a lion at present. I mean you to be a sheep. So saying, she touched me with her wand, and I became what you see. I did not lose the power of speech, nor of feeling the misery of my present state. For 5 years, she said, you shall be a sheep and lord of this pleasant land, while I, no longer able to see your face, which I loved so much, shall be better able to hate you as you deserve to be hated. She disappeared as she finished speaking, and if I had not been too unhappy to care about anything, I should have been glad that she was gone. The talking sheep received me as their king, and told me that they too were unfortunate princes who had, in different ways, offended the revengeful fairy, and had been added to her flock for a certain number of years, some more, some less. From time to time, indeed, one regains his own proper form, and goes back again to his place in the upper world. But the other beings whom you saw are the rivals or the enemies of Ragot, whom she has imprisoned for 100 years or so, though even they will go back at last. The young slave of whom I told you about is one of these. I have seen her often, and it has been a great pleasure to me. She never speaks to me, and if I were nearer to her, I know I should find her only a shadow, which would be very annoying. However, I noticed that one of my companions in misfortune was also very attentive to this little sprite, and I found out that he had been her lover, whom the cruel Ragot had taken away from her long before. Since then I have cared for and thought of nothing but how I might regain my freedom. I have often been in the forest, which is where I have seen you, lovely princess, sometimes driving your chariot, which you did with all the grace and skill in the world, sometimes riding to the chase on so spirited a horse that it seemed as if no one but yourself could have managed it, and sometimes running races on the plain with the princesses of your court, running so lightly that it was you always who won the prize. Oh, princess, I have loved you so long, and yet how dare I tell you of my love? What hope can there be for an unhappy sheep like myself? So he had loved the sprite and now he loves her. Right, okay. Miranda was so surprised and confused by all that she had heard, that she hardly knew what answer to give to the King of Sheep. But she managed to make some kind of little speech, which certainly did not forbid him to hope, and said that she could not be afraid of the shadows now that she knew that they would some day come to life again. We're all drinking water now, okay? It's such a strange story. Alas, she continued, if my poor Patty Patter, my dear Grabudgeon, and pretty little Tintin, who all died for my sake, were equally well off, I should have nothing left to wish for here. Prisoner though he was, the King of the Sheep still had some powers and privileges. Go, said he to his master of the horse, go and seek the shadows of the little black girl, the monkey, and the dog. They will amuse our princess. And an instant afterwards Miranda saw them coming toward her, and their presence gave her the greatest pleasure, though they did not come near enough for her to touch them. The King of the Sheep was so kind and amusing, and loved Miranda so dearly, that at last she began to love him too. Such a handsome sheep, who was so polite and considerate, could hardly fail to please, especially if one knew he was really a king, and that his strange imprisonment would soon come to an end. So the princess's days passed very gaily while she waited for the happy time to come. The King of the Sheep, with the help of all the flock, got up balls, concerts, and dancing and hunting parties, and even the shadows joined in all the fun, and came, making believe, to be their own real selves. One evening when the courtiers arrived, for the king sent most carefully for news, and they always brought the very best kinds, it was announced that the sister of the Princess Miranda was going to be married to a great prince, and that nothing could be more splendid than all the preparations for the wedding. Ah, cried the young princess, how unlucky I am to miss the sight of so many pretty things. She's got pretty things where she is. Sorry. To miss the sight of so many pretty things. Here I am, imprisoned under the earth, with no company but sheep and shadows, while my sister is to be adorned like a queen, and surrounded by all who love and admire her, and everyone but myself can go wish her joy. Why do you complain, princess? Said the King of the Sheep. Did I say that you were not to go to the wedding? Set out as soon as you please, only promise me that you will come back. For I love you too much to be able to live without you. Now we're getting Beauty and the Beast vibes, aren't we? Miranda was very grateful to him, and promised faithfully that nothing in the world should keep her from coming back. Apart from the fact that she's meant to be dead. The king caused an escort suitable to her rank to be got ready for her, and she dressed herself splendidly, not forgetting anything that could make her more beautiful. Like she needed it. Her chariot was of mother of pearl, drawn by 6 dun-coloured griffins, just brought from the other side of the world. Dun as a type of light brown, very pale brown, creamy brown, I think. And she was attended by a number of guards in splendid uniforms, who were all at least 8 feet high, and had come from far and near to ride in the princess's train. Miranda reached her father's palace just as the wedding ceremony began, and everyone, as soon as she came in, was struck with surprise at her beauty and the splendour of her jewels. She heard exclamations of admiration on all sides, and the king, her father, looked at her so attentively that she was afraid he might recognize her. But he was so sure she was dead that the idea never occurred to him. However, the fear of not getting away made her leave before the marriage was over. She went out hastily, leaving behind her a little coral casket with emeralds. On it was written in diamond letters, "Jewels for the bride." And when they opened it, which they did as soon as it was found, there seemed to be no end to the pretty things it contained. The king, who had hoped to join the unknown princess and find out who she was dreadfully disappointed when she disappeared so suddenly, and gave orders that if she ever came again, the doors were to be shut, that she might not get away so easily. So easily influenced by beauty, isn't he? Short as Miranda's absence had been, it seemed like 100 years to the King of the Sheep. He was waiting for her by a fountain in the thickest part of the forest, and the ground was strewn with splendid presents which he had prepared for her, to show his joy and gratitude at her coming back. As soon as she was in sight, he rushed to meet her, leaping and bounding like a real sheep. He caressed her tenderly, throwing himself at her feet and kissing her hands, and told her how uneasy he had been in her absence, and how impatient for her return, with an eloquence which charmed her. After some time came the news that the king's second daughter was going to be married. Is this where that dream comes true? When Miranda heard it, she begged the King of the Sheep to allow her to go and see the wedding as before. This request made him feel very sad, as if some misfortune must surely come of it. But his love for the princess being stronger than anything else, he did not like to refuse her. "You wish to leave me, princess," said he. "It is my unhappy fate. You are not to blame. I consent to your going, but believe me, I can give you no stronger proof of my love than by so doing, letting you go." The princess assured him that she would only stay a very short time, as she had done before, and begged him not to be uneasy, as she would be quite as much grieved if anything detained her as he could possibly be. So, with the same escort, she set out and reached the palace as the marriage ceremony began. Everybody was delighted to see her. She was so pretty that they thought she must be some fairy princess, and the princes who were there could not take their eyes off her. The king was more glad than anyone else that she had come again, and gave orders that the doors should all be shut and bolted that very minute. When the wedding was all but over, the princess got up quickly, hoping to slip away unnoticed among the crowd, but to her great dismay, she found every door fastened. She felt more at ease when the king came up to her, and with the greatest respect begged her not to run away so soon, but at least to honour him by staying for the splendid feast which was prepared for the princes and princesses. He led her into a magnificent hall where all the court was assembled, and himself taking up the golden bowl full of water, he offered it to her that she might dip her pretty fingers into it. That was the dream, remember? At this, the princess could no longer contain herself. Throwing herself at the king's feet, she cried out, "My dream has come true after all. You have offered me water to wash my hands on my sister's wedding day, and it has not vexed you to do it." He has not been humiliated by her to do it, which is what had angered him in the first place. The king recognized her at once. Indeed, he had already thought several times how much like his poor little Miranda she was. "Oh, my dear daughter," he cried, kissing her, "can you ever forget my cruelty?" Hope not. Maybe forgive, but don't forget. "I ordered you to be put to death because I thought your dream portended the loss of my crown. I'm going to kill you because you told me some news I didn't like. I thought. Not a stable head of state. And so it did, for now your sisters are both married and have kingdoms of their own, and mine shall be for you." So saying, he put his crown on the princess's head and cried, "Long live Queen Miranda!" All the court cried, "Long live Queen Miranda!" after him, and the young queen's two sisters came running up and threw their arms around her neck. They've never been jealous of her, yea, even though her dad was a bit unbalanced. Threw their arms around her neck and kissed her 1,000 times, and then there was such a laughing and crying, talking and kissing all at once, and Miranda thanked her father and began to ask after everyone, particularly the captain of the guard. Hope Dad's not going to go and have him beheaded because he disobeyed, to whom she owed so much, but to her great sorrow she heard that he was dead. No, that's not the end of the book. We've got 3 more. They've got 3 more pages. She's forgotten about the sheep, hasn't she? She heard that he was dead. Presently they sat down to the banquet, and the king asked Miranda to tell them all that had happened to her since the terrible morning when he had sent the captain of the guard to fetch her. This she did with so much spirit that all the guests listened with breathless interest. But while she was thus enjoying herself with the king and her sisters, the king of the sheep was waiting impatiently for the time of her return, and when it came and went, and no princess appeared, His anxiety became so great that he could bear it no longer. "She is not coming back any more," he cried. "My miserable sheep's face displeases her, and without my miserable sheep's face displeases her. There's so much assumption about, oh, I look beautiful, therefore I am good. Oh, I look ugly, therefore nobody loves me. It's all surface stuff. And they don't spell it out, unfortunately, the moral that's to do with that, because that's not what the moral of the story is. My miserable sheep's face displeases her, and without Miranda, what is left to me, wretched creature that I am? Oh, cruel Ragot, my punishment is complete. She's just at the feast. She hasn't been gone 5 weeks, mate. It's only a few hours. For a long time he bewailed his sad fate like this, and then seeing that it was growing dark, so it's still the same day. Maybe she shouldn't be with you if you're that self-obsessed or controlling, just like her father. And that there was still no sign of the princess, he set out as fast as he could in the direction of the town. When he had reached the palace, he asked for Miranda, but by this time everyone had heard the story of her adventures and did not want her to go back to the king of the sheep, so they refused sternly to let him see her. In vain he begged and prayed them to let him in, though his entreaties might have melted hearts of stone. They did not move the guards of the palace, and at last, quite broken-hearted, he fell dead at their feet. In the meantime, the king, who had not the least idea of the sad thing that was happening outside the gate of his palace, proposed to Miranda that she should be driven in her chariot all round the town, which was to be illuminated with thousands and thousands of torches placed in windows and balconies and in all the grand squares. But what a sight met her eyes at the very entrance to the palace! There lay her dear, kind sheep, silent and motionless upon the pavement. She threw herself out of the chariot and ran to him, crying bitterly, for she realized that her broken promise had cost him his life. And for a long time she was so unhappy that they thought she would have died too. So you see that even a princess is not always happy, especially if she forgets to keep her word, and the greatest misfortunes often happen to people just as they think they have obtained their heart's desires. End of the moral of the story. The end. And that one's by Madame de Aulnoy. Not quite the ending we were expecting. Oh my goodness. The prince, the king of the sheep, was meant to become unenchanted and then come out and be accepted and be the king with her, because she was now rightfully the queen. You know, we can imagine that. But yeah, what a weird story. I mean, storytelling-wise, just, yeah, normal. But then all this really strange stuff about appearances being so, people being offended by what somebody else, what they think somebody else intended. Do you have full control of everything in your dreams? I don't. There are some aspects of them where I realize I'm in a dream and I can go, no, right, that's not happening. But I don't make up the dream that's happening. They just happen. And so her father is so offended that she thinks that she's going to make him offer the basin, the ewer, the big bowl of golden bowl of water so she can wash her hands at her second sister's wedding, that he wants to have her killed and tries to get her killed. He's so offended that she thinks that. No, she had a dream. The dream was just random. Yeah, okay, it was meant to be sort of like a prophecy. But, and the sheep king. Oh, she's not come when she came late. No, when she did come back the first time. Oh, she's not coming back because she doesn't like my ugly face anymore. After she said she was going to. What a wonderful weird story. You're most welcome, Julia. There's just so strange. Some of these stories, the Grimm stories are really strange, like seriously weird, strange. But these ones appear to be normal, and yet they have this layer of weird, whereas the Grimm ones just seem weird. That's what's throwing me. And these are retellings specifically for children. Oh, my pet monkey wants you to kill it so that you can take its heart and tongue to my father to prove that you have killed me. That's a kid's story? A retelling for children? Ugh, yuck. How weird. So we're not going to think of them as children's stories anymore. They're just weird fairy tales. I will see you next time, hopefully, unless there's something else comes up, and I will try and let you know on social media and in the Discord server. I'm just going to give you my Discord link. I will see you next time for more from this book. And then I won't be here on my Friday, because today's Monday. For me, this is my time here. So look at what day it is for you and what time it is 2 hours ago. Also on my schedule. So normally I do 3 streams a week, my Monday, Wednesday and Friday. But this week, because they are servicing the power pole outside our house, and so that means my house and the ones near it have no power for the day. They've notified us that this is going to be happening because it's an essential servicing that needs to be done, probably replacing the transformer or something like that. I will have no power on Friday, so I will do today, which is Monday, and then Wednesday, which is my next one in 2 days' time. But then, as long as nothing else happens, like kidney stones, etc. But Friday's one will not be happening, okay? I am not making promises to replace it with anything else. I am just not going to stream on Friday because it's going to get too complicated if I try to. Especially if it's they might get it fixed in time, they might not. It's quite possible with weather conditions that they won't do it this Friday, that it'll be next Friday. I'm just saying now, I will not be streaming on my Friday, probably Thursday for you guys, but I will. If I didn't lose power, I still won't do the stream, but it would then be also the following Friday will be the same setup. So yeah, one more stream in the and reading this book. We're not finishing the book yet. We've still got quite a way to go. And then after we've finished this book, the next time I stream after that, we'll have a different book. I'm not sure which. I can't actually cope with the whole of this book in one string, or with all my streams being just this book, because they're just too strange for that. And we need some fun, and we need some adventure, and we need some stuff where it's not quite so weird. But thank you all, everybody, for being here. It's been lovely having you here with me. Don't forget, go and take care of your Discord servers, everybody. If you do want to join my Discord server, you are most welcome to fill in the application for it. It is not instant. You won't instantly be able to participate over there. But if you have a different screen name on Twitch than what you have on Discord, there's a text box in there where you get to answer a question. Answer the question, but then also say what your Twitch screen name is so I know how I know you if you are applying to join my Discord server, okay? That would be very, very helpful. Thank you very much. Yeah, if you have a Discord server, make sure you set up apply to join for your server so you don't get any of those really, really dangerously nasty bots joining your server at the moment, or anything else like that going on. Yeah. Take care of yourself. Stay hydrated, okay?